Planescape is a setting published by TSR in 1994 for 2nd edition Dungeons & Dragons. Its designer was David Zeb Cook, and it's primarily based on 1987's Manual of the Planes by Jeff Grubb. The setting came in a box comprised of 4 short books and a series of maps. The books were the DM's Guide, Player's Guide, extended guide to Sigil, the City of Doors, and Beyond, as well as a brief Monsters Manual. In this video, I'm going to give an overview of the Player's Guide. In my other video on Planescape, I cover the DM's Guide. Just to reiterate, the heart of this setting is the planes themselves. It was meant to define the entire cosmology of D&D at the time. There are 5 kinds of creatures in the setting of Planescape. Primes, also known as Outsiders or Clueless, are the mortal travelers born in the Prime Material Plane. Primes do not possess any natural ability to travel between planes, nor do they usually have any knowledge of the planes. The one thing they have going for them is that they are not vulnerable to planar-based magics. Planars, on the other hand, are those born in the planes outside of the Prime Material Plane. From a racial perspective, they include humans, halflings, elves, dwarves, and the like, along with some more exotic races. Then there are the Petitioners. These are the souls or spirits of both primes and planars that have traveled to another plane. They exist on the new plane in a variety of forms, and usually strive to become one with that plane. In terms of gameplay, these are always NPCs, since they are of limited memory and very linear will. There are Proxies, which are specially chosen agents empowered to act on behalf of powers or the deities of the planes. In terms of gameplay, these are elite NPCs. Lastly, there are powers themselves, the gods of the planes. They mostly draw their power from worshippers on the Prime Material Plane and often concern themselves with what's going on there rather than their home realms in the outer planes. Planescape presents 4 unique planar races to play, as well as all of the previous races from D&D up through 2nd edition as prime races. The Bariar. These centaur-like beings have the body of a large goat and torso and arms of a human. The head is a mix of both. They mostly reside on Isgard, with some representation in the Beastlands, Elysium, and Arborea. They tend to be chaotic good. Githzerai. Originating from a world called Gith in the Prime Material Plane, the central conceit of the Githzerai is that they are always at war with both Mind Flayers and their distant cousin race, the Githyanki. They are human-like but thinner and taller, with sharper features and a longer face. They are highly secretive and maintain fortresses on Limbo. Tieflings. This race became ubiquitous in later editions of D&D, but it all started here in Planescape, where they are described as, quote, part human and part something else. They are the orphans of the planes, humans who have been plane-touched, with no culture of their own and are often loners. It's worth noting that they are almost indistinguishable from humans in Planescape, except for some hard-to-describe qualities recognized by planars. The half-devil look would only come in later books. The setting provides 15 so-called factions, which are alignment-based organizations or societies that organize themselves around a central belief or dogma. Each faction is led by a leader called a factol, and every planar player must start with a faction. Prime characters, on the other hand, do not automatically start with a faction and may spend some time trying to earn their way in. The Athar, known as the Defiers or the Lost. They believe that the deities of the planes are false gods, and that indeed there is only one true god out there. They primarily operate out of the astral plane, where they like to point to the floating carcasses of the dead powers as proof of their great axiom. In Sigil, they are based in the Shattered Temple. Priests are not allowed to join, since they maintain faith in charlatan deities. Believers of the Source. Known as Godsmen, these factioners believe that all things are holy, and that sheer patience and endurance is what is needed to ascend and avoid reincarnation. Tests come up constantly, but the Godsmen don't know what is or isn't a test. Their primary plane is the ethereal, and in Sigil, they headquarter at the Great Foundry. Godsmen cannot be raised or resurrected by any means. The Bleak Cabal. Bleakers, madmen. These folks believe that there is no meaning to it all, and that's the whole point. Things just are. They don't look for meaning, and are introspective to a large degree. They are based in the plane of Pandemonium, and on Sigil, they have their base of operations at the Gatehouse. Lawful characters cannot join. At the beginning of each game day, a Bleak Cabaler must roll a d20. On a 20, they are overcome by the futility of it all for the day and cannot take any actions for 24 hours unless they are philosophically motivated by another player or NPC. The Doomguard. Believers of entropy and decay, that the deconstruction and nothingness of everything is the point of it all. The Doomguard have a citadel in the negative quasi-planes of ash, vacuum, salt, and dust, and their base in Sigil is in the city's armory. They do not allow priests who practice any healing or creation magic. They are also resistant to healing and curing magics. The Dustmen, also called the Dead. The Dustmen believe that there is no such thing as life, and that everyone is already dead. They believe that what looks like living creatures are actually just shadows from another plane of existence. They think the undead are pure and perfect. Somehow, the Dustmen are able to maintain a citadel in the oppressive darkness of the negative energy plane, and their headquarters in Sigil is the mortuary. All Dustmen possess the Dead Truce, which allows them to be ignored by any undead unless they bother it. The Fated. Known as the Takers or the Heartless, the Fated believe in a might-makes-right organization of the universe, in which nothing is free and everything belongs to those who work and fight for it. They are strongest in the plane of Isgard, and keep headquarters at the Hall of Records in Sigil. Only lawful good characters are precluded from joining the Fated. No member can ever perform an act of charity, and everything they receive must be earned in one way or another. The Fraternity of Order. Also known as governors, these scholarly folks believe that everything in the multiverse can be broken down into laws, and if they can learn the laws of the planes and of nature, then they can find loopholes and attain ultimate power. They do this through study and the accumulation of knowledge. They favor the cog-wheeled plane of Mechanus and keep offices at the city courts in Sigil. All members must be lawful in alignment, and no governor can knowingly break any law unless they know of a loophole. The Free League. Known as Indeps, these folks are fiercely protective of their personal freedom, and they always keep their options open in terms of what the ultimate truth might be. Their free-thinking ideology prevents them from ever really subscribing to one faith or another. They are mostly concentrated on the Outlands, which exists in the center of the Outer Planes, and they have a headquarters in the Grand Bazaar in Sigil. The Harmonium. Also known as Hardheads, these militant factioners impose violence on everyone who does not follow their particular rules and regulations. Although they believe in harmony, they think that the only way to induce compliance is through force. They are most concentrated on the plane of Arcadia, which is very much a bastion of harmony, and they headquarter in the city barracks in Sigil. All members must be of lawful alignment, and any member who turns their backs on the faction are sentenced to death. For harmony's sake. The Mercykillers. Known as the Red Death, the Mercykillers worship justice. Every crime must be punished by law, except for the Mercykillers themselves, who say they answer to a higher law. They are most powerful on the plane of Acheron and maintain headquarters in Sigil's prison. The Mercykillers form a sort of triumvirate, along with the Harmonium and the Fraternity of Order, which serve the functions of arrest, trial, and punishment. Thieves and criminals are not allowed to join the Mercykillers. Any crime committed as a Mercykiller while in the course of punishing a criminal is not considered a crime. The Revolutionary League. Called anarchists, these folks believe that the deities of the planes, as well as all of the other factions, are just instruments of oppression. They call for the deconstruction of all other factions so that everyone can discover the real truth for themselves. They have no leader and are most concentrated on the prison plane of Carceri, naturally. In Sigil, they are constantly on the move as to avoid capture and further imprisonment. Lawful types are not allowed to join. Anarchists must give away 90% of any treasure gained, and they are prohibited from participating in anything resembling government or business. The Sign of One. The so-called signers believe that every signer is unique and is in fact the most important person in the universe. They reside mostly in the plane of the Beastlands and headquarter in the Hall of Speakers in Sigil. Their strangely immense egos make it difficult to read and understand the motives and feelings of others. The Society of Sensation. Known as the Sensates, these folks trust only their bodily senses and believe that ultimate knowledge comes from experiencing everything at least once. They are connoisseurs of foods and smells and concentrate mostly on the plane of Arborea, a focal point of beauty in all things. In Sigil, they office at the Civic Fest Hall. Members are unable to refuse an offer to have a new taste, smell, or other experience. The Transcendent Order. The so-called ciphers believe that action without thought is the closest they can get to being one with the multiverse. To that end, they endeavor to learn their own minds and instincts through training until they are devoid of conscious thought. They are strongest on the plane of Elysium, where it's easy to sit around and work on that sort of thing. And their sigil base is at the Great Gymnasium. Only characters of neutral alignment may join. Anytime a cipher announces an action out loud, they must take that action. The Xaositects. Known as the Chaos Men, they believe that there is no order or pattern to anything, and that everyone lives in chaos. They are centered in the plane of limbo, and in Sigil they are based in the, chaotic slum of the Hive. Naturally, only chaotic alignment characters can join this faction. Members are forbidden from creating businesses, building strongholds, organizing armies, or anything long-term, really. For the sake of brevity, I'm not going to cover the rest of the core materials from Planescape, which deal with the great hub city of Sigil, as well as the Outlands and some other odds and ends. Needless to say, the art and unique tone of the writing can be found throughout. As far as playability, this supplement is probably best in increments. A group could campaign for weeks or months exploring a single realm of a single plane, and to jump around too fast from plane to plane might be both jarring and difficult to do unless everyone at the table has studied the material enough. Like I mentioned at the end of my other Planescape video, this is a classic. It's a brave specimen of creativity hailing from the 90s that has largely lost to the ocean of supplements and references that were meant to supplant it in the name of fresh rule sets. It's good stuff. As always, thanks for spending some time listening. This is Dave, signing off. See ya.